Our world changed a few months ago when ICE agents invaded our neighborhood. Families torn apart, people disappearing, loud screams at night, and sometimes even in broad daylight. At first, I thought they were just doing their jobs, but I was wrong. These agents harbored a secret far deeper than the public ever knew. And it wasn't until they came for Mrs. María Hernández that the true horror began to reveal itself. It was a cold Sunday afternoon. I had just woken up after a long night shift. The walk from my bedroom to the kitchen felt like a slow shuffle, each step heavier than the last. But I had to brew my cup of coffee. I had another shift to prepare for. As I turned on my coffee maker, I heard people shouting outside. I quickly peered through my window to see what was happening. Right outside was a black van, and more worrying was the state in which I saw Mrs. María. She was handcuffed tightly and was being manhandled. I watched as ICE agents dragged her into the van while her kids stood by, watching their mother being taken away in the most inhumane way. I gasped when they began tasing her. All she had done was try to hug her 7-year-old daughter. After witnessing such a gruesome scene, I ran outside to comfort her, protect her kids, anything. When she saw me, she yelled, begging me to take care of her children until she got back. I owed it to her to do just that. Mrs. María and I barely spoke or visited each other, but she always made a point to hold a short conversation whenever we crossed paths. I had also babysat her kids once or twice. She was kind and peaceful, so it was truly heartbreaking to see her in such a condition. I tried to walk her kids back into the house. They had seen enough to scar them. They didn't need to witness anymore. 17-year-old Diego, 11-year-old Olivia, and 5-year-old Alejandro. They were such nice kids, too. As I stepped into the Hernández home, I couldn't help but wonder how unprepared they must have been. Lunch was still on the table as if they were just about to sit down for a peaceful family meal. Now, it had turned into the worst day of their lives. I stayed with them till an hour before my next shift. I warned them to lock the doors, gave Diego my number to call if there was ever an emergency, and told them I'd be back by morning. And that was it for the night. While at work, I couldn't help but wonder how they were coping without their mom. So I called, but there was no response. Were they asleep? It was just 9 p.m. Did they usually sleep so early? All these questions ran through my mind. I couldn't wait till morning for my shift to be over. On my way back home, I got a call from the Hernández residence. It was Diego. He sounded so afraid. With a shaken voice, he told me that the agents had taken Olivia and Diego away. They had raided the apartment that night, but he managed to escape by hiding in the bushes. He blamed himself for not being able to protect his siblings. I tried to console him, but what could I possibly say to a kid who had just lost his mom and siblings to make him feel even slightly better? I had no choice but to help Diego reunite with his family. I brought him home to clean up, and then we both headed to the detention facility where they were rumored to be held. We hoped to see them there, but to our surprise, the detention center was unusually calm for a place associated with agents bursting into homes and tearing families apart. And not in the they couldn't care less kind of way, but more like a nothing like that ever happened here sort of way. It was strange, especially since all our sources had pointed us here. I was worried, but I had to keep a straight face to keep Diego calm. To clear all doubts, we checked other centers, but there were no records of the Hernández family, not in the past week at least. By the end of the day, we had made no progress. For all we knew, Mrs. María and her 2 kids had vanished from Earth, but we had to head back home. It was getting late. As expected, it was a long and quiet ride home. I glanced at Diego, watching as he stared into space with teary eyes and a numb look on his face. As we approached our neighborhood, something felt different. The streets were empty and dark. I couldn't quite tell what was happening, but the neighborhood had never felt this quiet, this lifeless. As we walked up to my door, I told Diego that I couldn't let him sleep all alone in his rundown apartment. I was going to have him stay with me until he could be with his family again. To make things a lot easier, I told him to grab a few things from his apartment while I ordered pizza for dinner. Some clothes, maybe more. Anything to make him feel at home. Without hesitation, he went to pick up a few things. While I went to the guest room to make it more homely, it had been empty for a while. I heard a car park nearby, followed by the sound of shattered glass. I hurried to the window to see what was going on, and there I saw it. The same ICE van that had picked up Mrs. Maria. And just a few steps away, two men were carrying Diego into the van. I stood there in shock, trying to gather my thoughts. What should I do? Why did they come at night? Worse, why was Diego not moving? It didn't feel right. In a split second, I made the reckless decision to follow them. I ran to my car and trailed the van at a safe distance, headlights off, crawling through the dark. After what felt like an eternity, the van came to a stop in front of an old, abandoned Catholic church. I had heard countless spooky stories about this place. Most sounded like wild rumors, but seeing the van park here made it all too real. The stories weren't just tales. Something dark was happening. I pulled off the road and hid my car in the bushes, not too far away. With everything I'd heard about this place, I knew better than to risk being seen. From the shadows, I watched as they carried Diego and several others into the church. 15 people, maybe more. They spent about 30 minutes unloading the van. Then the doors slammed shut, and the night fell completely silent. I crept closer, staying low in the underbrush. Just as I reached the edge of the clearing, someone grabbed my hand. My entire body froze. But before I could scream, another hand clamped over my mouth. It was Esther. We lived in the same neighborhood. Her wide eyes locked onto mine as she pressed a finger to her lips, urging me to stay silent. Slowly, she removed her hand from my mouth. I turned to see who was holding my hand. It was Jason, and standing right beside him was Jaime, both from my neighborhood. In that moment, I felt relief. I felt lighter, safer. "What are you all doing here?" I asked, breathless. They guided me to a spot behind the thick brush and sat me down, their faces serious. Then they told me everything. Unlike me, who had only just stumbled upon this disturbing discovery, they had been investigating it for months, ever since friends and family members started vanishing after being detained by what turned out to be fake ICE agents. They told me about the secret tunnel beneath the abandoned church, and how no one who went in ever came back out. If I hadn't witnessed Diego's abduction with my own eyes, I would have never believed them. "What's the plan?" I asked urgently. After everything I'd just heard, it was clear Diego, and possibly his entire family, was in danger. Esther explained that they were planning to go through the tunnels themselves to find out what was really going on. They had flashlights and even weapons for protection, they said. Jason handed me one. "Can you use it?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "I can, but only at a shooting range. I've never had to use one for real." We moved carefully through the tunnels and eventually reached two doors. Jason reached for the first one. As soon as we pushed it open, a wave of foul stench hit us like a wall. We staggered back, choking. Inside, the room was filled with bodies, decayed, rotting, some barely recognizable. They had been there for weeks. Esther began sobbing after we shut the door. She could recognize one of the bodies. It had the same clothes her sister had been wearing the day she was detained. For a moment, Esther went quiet, her eyes glassy with tears. Then she wiped them away with a cold look on her face. Something in her had shifted. I was concerned. She felt different. Grief had changed her, and I wasn't sure how far she was willing to go. It didn't feel like a movie anymore. We were dealing with something far worse than we imagined. We pushed open the second door. Inside, Diego and several others were lying unconscious on the floor, tied up but breathing. I hurried toward Diego to untie him, but before I got there, we heard heavy footsteps approaching. They were slow, steady, and unnaturally loud, too loud to belong to a normal person. We quickly hid behind a stack of bodies just as the door opened. A tall green creature walked in, almost 7 feet, with 4 arms and dark, unblinking eyes. It didn't hesitate. It picked up 3 of the unconscious people and walked back out. Esther and I decided to follow it quietly, while Jaime and Jason stayed behind to help the others. The hallway led to a larger underground chamber that looked nothing like the other rooms. This place was filled with strange machines and holding cells. People were trapped, some in cages, others inside glass tubes, and many of them were screaming. I spotted Mrs. Maria, Olivia, and Alejandro among them. They were still alive, but clearly in distress. One of the creatures seemed to be using some kind of electric device on them. It was hard to watch. Before I could figure out what to do, Esther opened fire. She didn't say anything, just raised her weapon and started shooting. One of the creatures howled and stumbled back, caught off guard. Left with no choice, I raised my weapon and started shooting too. Esther ran out of bullets quickly. As she struggled to reload, one of the creatures lunged at her and struck, its sharp claws slicing clean through. She dropped instantly. I let out a sharp grunt and fired, aiming straight for the creature's head. The bullet went through its eye, and it collapsed. Now I knew how to kill them, but it was already too late for her. The second creature charged toward me. I turned and ran, heading for the door. I slammed it shut behind me, but it didn't hold. With a single blow, the creature smashed through. Luckily, I had a clear shot from where I stood. I steadied my breath, took aim, and fired, right in its left eye. It dropped instantly. In the distance, I heard sirens. The police were finally here. Jaime and Jason had called them. With everything we had witnessed and recorded, there was no bearing the story now. A few ambulances arrived shortly after to tend to the survivors. The police began documenting the scene, taking photos, collecting evidence, and asking questions. One of the sergeants was assigned to drive us home. I took Diego with me. He was slowly regaining consciousness. Jaime and Jason were also escorted home in separate vehicles. Esther, unfortunately, didn't make it. Her loss hit all of us hard. We were heartbroken. And though no one said it out loud, we all blamed ourselves for not protecting her. There was nothing we could do now but carry the weight of what had happened. The next morning, we went to the station to get an update, but everyone looked at us like we were crazy. Blank stares, confused expressions. It was as if they had no idea what we were talking about. I called Jaime and Jason. Both said they had gone to the hospital, but no one there knew anything about the bodies that had been brought in or the incident from the night before. Something wasn't right. We drove back to the abandoned Catholic church, hoping to find some kind of proof. But everything was gone. The place had been completely wiped clean. No signs of the tunnel, no blood, no equipment, nothing. It was like it never happened. That's when it hit us. The aliens weren't working alone. The government was in it, and they were targeting immigrants. We're not safe here. We drove back home, packed a few essentials, and left with Diego. He may never see his family again, but this isn't over. Someday, we'll get to the bottom of it.